So Microsoft had their earnings, and it was mixed, right? They banged out a beat and a beat, but people were concerned about that measly 30% growth in Azure, which I just find a bit comical. But listen, if I look down the line of how these folks did, right? I mean, up 14% on productivity and business processes, and I look across the line, Office Commercial, Consumer, LinkedIn, and Dynamics up across the board. Investors were happy with Intelligent Cloud, which is a conglomeration of everything that they do in the cloud, right? That includes, Azure, GitHub, Nuance, SQL Server, stuff like that. That was up 19%. I mean, think about this. This is nearly a $26 billion business. A couple points that just to put this into macro. You live by the sword and you die by the sword. And Microsoft was getting a tremendous amount of lift through the OpenAI stuff, right? And if you look at it, right, their AI lift on that entire cloud number, that was $13 billion run rate in annual revenue run rate, which is just absolutely phenomenal. But very similar to the conversation we had about the macro view of DeepSeek, I can't imagine a company that can benefit downstream more than Microsoft on this. This company is a software company. It's getting credit right now for its infrastructure, which is great, but it's a software company and it operates in multiple modalities. You want to build an application? Hey, we got you. You want to, run an application? Heck, you can still buy Office without having a subscription. Do you want enterprise SaaS through Dynamics 365 or through the entire Microsoft 365 stack? And let's not forget GitHub. So there's a company that's going to take advantage of the downstream impacts of AI. It's going to be Microsoft. This intersection up front that you normally wouldn't expect for Microsoft related to the OpenAI surge is why people want more.
Yeah, so good talking points there, Pat. And look, it was very simple. It's sold on the Azure growth number. The number wasn't as high as people wanted. I think it recovered a little bit when people started to digest the AI number, the acceleration of the number. The sort of calculus that's being done by most people is the 60, 80, plus $1 billion that's being spent on AI, and knowing that you've got a kind of a fairly short shelf life on the, Hopper, Blackwell, although I think there's a lot of debate on that, by the way, how much shelf life you're going to have in terms of inferencing tasks and stuff that can be done longer term. But having said that, to get to 13 billion of revenue, the nice thing for a company like Microsoft, to your point, is really inference can be built into every interaction with every piece of software across every single device. And when you start to look at the size of the install base, you can't really look at Microsoft much differently than you look at Apple. And people love to look at Apple for, I know it's a bit more of a consumer brand, but like Microsoft lives inside almost every person that works in a company in any sort of role that has access and interaction with a device is using some Microsoft. It's a massive install base out there. And when you start to think about, the ability for them to scale inference and basically deliver it at a margin. So basically every time, someone clicks the button, the Copilot button, or any other AI enhanced feature, it'll cost Microsoft a penny and they'll charge $3 or whatever it is. And then you start thinking about how this works when you, make it trillions of these sort of interactions happening at a time. The math tends to work out. The problem is patience isn't really there with people. They see the spend, they want a return right away. In the old days, you'd build a factory and 5 years later, the factory starts creating profit for a company. Nowadays, when you spend on CapEx, investors want to see returns come really quickly. And Microsoft's growth's a little bit slower. You're talking about, a fairly muted guidance. They're like 10%, growth, better than Apple. But anyways, the point is, the growth of the whole company and, the diversified portfolio, everything from, Surface devices, PCs, Windows licensing to dynamic software to, of course, Azure. And I really do think, though, Pat, that these cloud companies, they trade on their, the companies that have hyperscale cloud, they trade on their cloud number. Like everything else is kind of like a wash as long as the cloud is growing fast enough. Just kind of a reiteration about the value of what's seen as recurring revenue, subscription services, and of course, growth of those business areas. But I'm still very optimistic about Microsoft. I appreciate how transparent they've been with their AI business and how it's generating revenue. I think, they're a company that, by the way, has a great example of a beneficiary of scaling laws. If they can deliver inference cheaper, every one of those interactions with every piece of software and hardware becomes more profitable for the company, and or it drives speed of adoption and enables Microsoft to be more aggressive with how it incorporates inference and how it pushes adoption of it across all of its softwares that are, like I said, used by so many people. So pretty good numbers, not great. The market sold hard on it. It was all about missing that 31%. People want to see the cloud infinitely growing at an incredible pace. And they want to see, obviously, AI accelerating at a pace that's probably unrealistic until we see this infrastructure build out and we see some of these scaling laws better implemented into the enterprise workloads.